All right.
Hey, good morning. Once again, we have a Facebook Live video for my election campaign to be your next mayor. And this morning, we always try to broadcast from somewhere different and fun. This morning, we're broadcasting from my kitchen. And we're doing that because, my daughter has a band competition today. She's having a friend over. They want to do a pancake breakfast, but her time schedule got moved up by an hour, so we had conflicting schedules. So I told her I would do the pancakes breakfast for her, and I also had to do this Facebook Live. So I'll be flipping pancakes during this Facebook Live, but that's a good thing, right? Politicians like to flip pancakes. So we'll be doing that. So we're here in the kitchen, and today's topic is development in Carolina Beach and the land use plan. And so those are the big topics. That's what I'd like to talk about today. And basically, I think I'll start off by explaining what the land use plan is, and then talk about how that ties into our zoning and what that means for us. But basically, I think a lot of people are already familiar with the land use plan. We have, it's been a process. We update it, every 10 years or so. It needs to be updated. And the last update was in 2007. And so during the past year, they've been going through an update of the land use plan. And there's a draft that's been out. There's been a couple of, several, I guess, public events and public hearings. And there's been a lot of input from the public on that. But it's still in draft form. It's still in draft form. And I'm not sure if it will be voted on. I'm not sure what the schedule is for moving from a draft to a final and for voting on it. But it doesn't seem likely that it'll happen before the election, but I don't know for sure. I can't say that. But we can move around here. I gotta pour some pancakes. Because people are showing up, and gotta half keep an eye on these and half keep an eye on what I'm trying to say about the land use plan. And I think everything will be all right. So that's what the land use plan is really, and the land use plan is mandated by state law. We have to periodically update it, and it describes our desired future use of our town, and it feeds into our zoning. And what people will tell you, which is true, is that the land use plan itself is not a zoning document, but it's used when making decisions to change the zoning. It's used when making decisions for to approve or not approve conditional use permits. So it's a very important document. And let me see here. If I was going to quote something, maybe I won't. That's okay. But I think that's the most important thing to realize is that it. Well, here's what it says. It says here, right in the land use plan, that the from the map, there's an associated character and area descriptions should be used by decision makers when weighing rezoning requests. And it says that it should be follow North Carolina regulations, this 160A-383. And what that regulation says, that gives, this regulation states that it says, first of all, the zoning regulations shall be made in accordance with a comprehensive plan. And for us, that comprehensive plan is the land use plan. And so if you're applying, which developers often do, they'll come around and they have a plan for a development, a nice development. It doesn't exactly fall into the existing written zoning, but they can, depending on what zoning district they want to build in, they can apply for a conditional use permit. And so that process, they'll go through planning and zoning, and who have to weigh the legalities of it and make recommendation to council, who will then vote for final approval or not approval. But what the state law says is that prior to adopting or rejecting any zoning amendment, the governing board shall adopt one of the following statements. And a statement approving the zoning amendment and describing its consistency with the adopted comprehensive plan. So if you want to approve it, you have to say, how this is in line with your comprehensive plan. And then you have to also explain why the action that's being taken is in the public interest. If you want to deny the zoning amendment, you have to also do something similar. You have to say why zoning request, change request, is inconsistent with the land use plan. So land use plan is very important. Whatever changes we're making now in the proposed land use plan, that opens the door to future zoning changes. So I think it's very important going forward that we make sure that the land use plan is consistent with our vision of where we want this town to go. And so I'm out during this campaign season. I've been talking to residents and getting their feedback on how they think, where they think development should go, whether it's a central business district or in our residential neighborhoods. And as your next mayor, I will continue to listen to the residents and take your input and make sure that the land use plan is consistent with the town's desires going forward. All right, I didn't burn them yet, so that's good. It's always good not to burn the first batch. Maybe the second batch. All right. So that's the importance of the land use plan and what we're doing with it. And I think my big concern with the land use plan, we'll talk more about it at the end here, is that it's proposing some changes to land classifications and the uses of those lands, either in our existing residential neighborhoods or in the zoning districts adjacent to our existing neighborhoods. And so the way I look at it is those changes in many instances will allow for will open the door for zoning changes that could allow higher density residential development in these relatively quiet residential neighborhoods that are consisting mostly of single and two family homes. And it's also opening the door to commercial development abutting these residential neighborhoods. So we could have some commercial development encroaching into our neighborhoods. And my main goal is to protect residential neighborhoods and protect our residential quality of life. So I think those are important things to keep in mind. All right, still haven't burned anything. That's good. And so I just want to give one example of how the land use plan and conditional use permits work. And this is very relevant. There's been October 10th, there was a planning and zoning P&Z meeting to consider a conditional use permit for a development in the Carolina Beach Marina and Yacht Club. And that plan is to put a floating barge, which would then be a restaurant and bar, out on the docks in the Carolina Beach and Marina area. So this area that we're talking about is right at the end of Florida and Georgia Avenue, and where they attach to the Marina Street. And so the plan is to put this barge at the end of the dock, and so that whole area is zoned this Marina Business District. So you're allowed to put businesses there with a conditional use permit. You could put in a restaurant and a bar. But the other problem is that this business district, is adjacent to two different relatively quiet residential areas, and I've seen this before. When I was on council in Ohio, we had similar conflicts, and it's common to have conflicts with zoning requests where the zoning request is at the border of one zoning district where it abuts another zoning district, especially if the one zoning district is some kind of a commercial district, and the adjoining districts are residential. And that always, I've seen that before. It does create conflict. And you can deny the permit, conditional use permit, but that can also, depending on how the zoning rules and the land use plan are written, if you deny it, you can open yourself up to the town to legal action. So you have to be careful. It's a tricky situation. So what's going on with the Carolina Beach, Carolina Beach Marina and Yacht Club area is, I guess the way I see it, there was a public hearing, but the way I see it, it is going to have an impact on the residents. Those are relatively quiet residential districts. It could potentially drive more traffic to the marina to use this bar and restaurant, and so that traffic will have to come up through these quiet residential streets, Florida Avenue and Georgia Avenue. Those are quiet areas to get to the back of those streets to get to the parking lot. But when I listened to that public hearing, it was the testimony on behalf of the applicant was citing statements in the land use plan from 2007, the current land use plan, citing how their proposed development was consistent with the land use plan, and that the land use plan was encouraging commercial development along the waterfront. And so it's very important, what's in the land use plan is used as a basis to deny or allow these conditional use permits. And so that's a big thing. The public hearing went on. It's still kind of a battle that's going on between the residents who seem opposed to this. They're afraid, or they're very concerned it'll impact their quality of life. And my personal feeling is that more pancakes. My personal feeling is that when it comes down to protecting our quality of life for the residents versus allowing more development, especially when you're on these border areas between a residential area and a commercial area, I would think we need to fall on the side of the residents and protecting the residents' quality of life. And that's where I would fall, and that's the way I would look at this kind of an issue. Although there are some legal things that come into play as well. So that brings me up to the next point is there's more people coming. See, everyone's showing up for our pancake breakfast. That's good. It's a good thing I have pancakes. I'm gonna throw some blueberries in here. Maybe these are big ones. All right. Good. So this is why it's very important when we update this land use plan to make sure it's consistent with our views of development, and I believe it needs to protect our residential neighborhoods. And right now I don't see it. I see some areas where it's not doing that, and I look in particular when I look at the map for some proposed changes for the land use plan. It might be hard to see it on here, but this is Lake Park Boulevard. And this is south of, let me see, there's Ocean Boulevard, and that's Pelican Watch, that's Golden Sands and Tiki Bar, and there's Atlantic Towers to the south. But those three areas, they want to reclass the property use is what's being proposed in this land use plan, in the revised land use plan. And basically, one of the big things they're doing behind here, we live behind Atlantic Towers, a block back. So in this area, and up behind the Pelican Watch as well, the same thing is happening. The house we live in is obviously a single family home. Across the street from us is a single family home. Next door to that is a small single family mobile home. There's 2 vacant lots, then there's 2 more single family homes, and across the street, there's a single family home. Now our neighbors and across the street here are 2 family homes, duplexes. So we're in an area that is low to medium density housing. And it's a very quiet residential area. We're next to the Atlantic Towers, but especially in the off season, like right now, it's a quiet residential area. But one thing that this land use plan is proposing is to reclass this 2-block area that I just described to you as single family homes. They are proposing to reclassify it as high density housing. And high density housing is defined as apartments and condos and that kind of living. And so my concern is that once it's reclassified, if it goes through, if the land use plan says this could be high density housing, which clearly it's not, there are still a couple of vacant lots available. And so if that gets reclassed, a developer could come in and say, you know what, I would like to build some high density apartments or condo buildings here in the middle of your quiet neighborhood. And it'll go to the permit, they'll go through the permitting process, and they'll say, well, it's consistent with the land use plan. And so that's a big factor, weighing in favor of the applicant. So that's one thing. I think these residential areas should not be reclassed If they're medium and low density, they should not be reclassed into high density housing. And that's the same thing when you go behind the Pelican Watch. You know, that's going back 2 blocks all the way to Snapper, and about a half block in either direction. They're changing that to high density housing. I'm not sure what the exact reason is, because when I walk that area, it's all single and 2 family homes. There might be still a few vacant lots. You know, so it just opens that whole residential area up to you know, more high density residential development. And the other thing, the last thing that's going on with the land use plan is that throw a few more blueberries in here. There we go. All right, everyone's happy now. Is that they've also are reclassifying the area along Lake Park Boulevard in front of these residential areas. Right now they're this mixed use transitional district, which means that it's what it says in the zoning currently is a mixed use. The intent is to let me see. Permitted uses would include a mixture of single family homes, 2 family dwellings, some small scale office and institutional uses, small hotels and motels, which we do. We have small hotels and motels, right? We got the Atlantic Towers right up on the beachfront there. But what it's being the reclass, and these are huge, you know, one block areas from here going all the way back to both in by Atlantic Towers. It's being reclassed as what we're calling it as a neighborhood commercial node. It's coming off the street. It's not like a mixed use transitional zone anymore. It's coming all the way back a block back into the residential area. And this is happening behind Pelican Watch as well. And what a mixed use, what a neighborhood commercial node is, when you look at this land use plan, that's the same classification as the shopping plaza that contains Michael's Seafood and Island Beverage. Now, I love going to those places, and we frequent them a lot, but that's an example of a neighborhood commercial node. And so that's what they are also reclassifying this land in front of these residential neighborhoods on the south end of town next to Lake Park Boulevard as neighborhood commercial. And so that really allows much more. That's not a use that's currently in the zoning, but if that gets in the land use plan, again, a developer could come by and say, you know what, I'd like to put in some kind of a plaza or a drugstore or a bar and a restaurant. And, you know, again, all that's going to do is that's going to set us up for more conflict between 2 zoning districts, a residential and a commercial zoning district. You're going to have more conflicts, possibly like you're seeing up there at the yacht club, the Carolina Beach Marina and Yacht Club. You know, when you have 2 abutting zoning districts, you're going to have that kind of a conflict. So these are the kinds of things I see in the land use plan, which I think are detrimental and could be detrimental to the residential quality of life and protecting our neighborhoods. And so, let me see. All right, I think those are cooked. Let them cook a little more. Sometimes the blueberries make it so it doesn't cook on the inside. So I guess as your next mayor, and again, I don't know if where this is in the process of being finalized and approved, but one way or the other, if it's approved or not approved before the election, if I get elected and I'm your next mayor, I would revisit this and make sure that the land use plan and the zoning are in line with our expectations for this town and are in line with our expectations for protecting our neighborhoods. And so that's my vision. I think the mayor, your next mayor, the mayor should always have a vision for the town, and that's my vision. That's part of my vision, is that we continue to protect our neighborhoods and our residential quality of life. That's a big attraction to this town. That's why many of us moved here, is because of the neighborhoods. There's a lot of beach towns you could go and visit and live in all the way up and down North Carolina coast, but most of them don't have the high residential component that Carolina Beach has. So it's a great place to live. It's what attracted us here. It's what attracts a lot of people here. And so that's my vision, as the town grows and we continue to develop, we can't lose sight of the things that we like about the town and the reasons we moved here. We need to protect that. And so that's where I stand. So that's just a little bit of insight into the land use plan and how the zoning and the land use plan work together, and the potential problems we could have if we're not careful how we set those up. All right, so that's it. That's all I have for today. So I hope that was a little bit informative and helpful, and I hope it also gave you some idea about my position on development. I'm not anti-development. I think I'm just smart and responsible development, and it's great in certain areas. So let's just make sure going forward that our tools, the land use plan, the tools that we have in place match our expectations and give us the protections we need. So that's it. I'm signing off. I'm going to go eat some pancakes. And before I do that, one last thing I need to let everyone know about is I have this coming week, I have 2 meet and greets coming up. First one is Monday evening, 6 p.m. at Stoked Restaurant on the water. And I'll be there, and I think I will talk about my plan is to talk about the marina revitalization plan. That's about a $3 million project. Ideally, the town would like to start it sometime this winter. So we'll see how that goes. We can talk about that. And the second meet and greet is on Wednesday at Old Salty's, and that will be that's an hour and a half. You can look that up online to see the start and the end times. And that'll be pretty much just a Q&A, question and answer session with residents, whoever would like to show up. So those are both open to the public. I hope you can make one or both of those, and I will see you there. See you Monday or Wednesday. Oh yes, my wife is reminding me that it is her birthday, and I should have told her that this pancake breakfast was for her. That's what But so happy birthday, Chris. Thanks for waking up and filming on Saturday morning, and goodbye everyone. Have a nice Saturday.